Hi, and welcome back to Smallwick Wellness. Today, we're going to be talking about a subject that doesn't often get talked about, yet it is very important, especially for the female and living well. We are going to be talking about hormones and the female cycle and how to cycle well. A lot of times, we are told that being female and the things that we experience, which could also be known as symptoms, you'll hear me use that word interchangeably, are just normal, or we just need to get used to it. However, there is a difference in a normal cycle and a non-normal cycle. And how do you know if you're normal or not? It's very under talked about, even within the medical community, especially between patient and doctor. So today, we're gonna get the scoop on everything that you need to know about how to cycle well. Okay, so first things first, I have some bullet points to keep me on topic. I'm very passionate about this subject, so I want to remain on topic and give this to you straight, concise, and to the point. So everyone metabolizes hormones differently. Everyone is a little bit more sensitive or a little less sensitive. Everyone is different, and that's okay. How do you know what your normal is? You can take two different females who have the exact same levels of hormones, and they will be experiencing very different situations and symptoms, even though their levels look the same. So we're going to go through a basic overview of what a normal cycle should look like, how you should be breaking it down. It's very simple. We don't want to make it too complex. And then what you should do and what you can do to help to normalize your cycle. Now, if we get into a situation where you're trying to do all of the things to create a normal cycle and live a life well while you're cycling, then you may need some extra help, and that's where medical intervention should come into play. Namely, there are some issues like PCOS and or endometriosis that you should be seeking medical advice. And just so you know, a lot of the solutions to those is just birth control. And so I want to preface this by saying if you're on birth control or if you're thinking about birth control, it's not a way to regulate your hormones. When you take birth control, it's a synthetic version of a hormone. So that way it shuts down your body's own ability to make hormones. So you're swapping a dysregulation for a synthetic elimination of hormones altogether because we don't know what to do. So I highly recommend considering birth control as a last-ditch effort after trying a lot of different holistic approaches to reach a regulation if you have dysfunction or even a more specialized medical issue with hormones altogether. If we were not meant to have hormones, then God would not have created us to have these fluctuating hormones monthly. This can be difficult for females because literally half of the month, your brain and your body is operating in one space, and then the other half of the month, your brain and your body is operating in a different space and capacity. We need to understand this in order to live well and treat ourselves well. So, basic overview of understanding your cycle. Essentially, you have two phases of your cycle. You have your follicular phase or your estrogenic phase. That is the first 14 or so days of your cycle. Then you have the last half of your cycle, which is called the luteal phase, and that is essentially the last 14 or so days of your cycle. Your cycles are going to be about 28 days, give or take. So anyone who cycles normally, if you are anywhere from 21 days to 35 days, that is a normal number for your cycle. It should be pretty consistent, and the average is 28-day cycle. Depending on when you ovulate, it may be a few days off. You may dip into day 27, you may dip over into day 29 if you're a 28-day cycler, and you'll hear me talk about 28 days just because that's the average. But again, 21 to 35 days is normal, okay? So the other piece that you may want to consider is ovulation. If all you want to focus on is the first two phases, stay there. But there is an extra piece of ovulation that can kind of change how we operate, and it's also in our testosterone peaks as females as well. So you can kind of think of ovulation and a testosterone peak almost coexistently. They're going at the same time. Okay, a few things about ovulation. So it's like literally the halfway point of your cycle. So it's anywhere from day 11 to day 16. With a 28-day cycler, it's going to be around day 14. After you ovulate, once you ovulate, that's when you start the back half and you're going into your luteal phase. Okay. Typically, it should take about 2 to 5 years after you start cycling as a female to kind of find normalcy. So in the younger generations, if they're abnormal for the first couple of years after they start their cycle, that is normal. Now, if we have like excessive bleeding, or if there are just things that are like, okay, this isn't right, we need to seek medical attention. But there's going to be a gap period from the start to a normalization in someone who's just starting their cycle. At about 25 to 30 years old, you're going to start to see a shift in those hormones. And then again, at about 35 to 40, you will start the process of perimenopause and then menopause. When you are in your 30s, it is so important to try and have a normal, regular cycle at this point, because you're setting yourself up for menopause. So a lot of the times, and the biggest issues that I see when I'm treating somebody who's going through menopause or who just gone through menopause and they're seeking bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, is that there's all of these little underlying conditions that start to come out of the woodworks because I had a normal cycle, or I was told that this was normal for me and just to get over it, it's being a female. That isn't really the case. There's a lot of things that you can do to set yourself up well. And when you have those hormones, it's very easy for other underlying issues to kind of go undiagnosed and get thrown by the wayside, because you have things that you need to make you feel normal. Once you take away these hormones that serve over 300 functions in our body, all the way from our brain to our bones, to our heart, to our gut, to everything that we do, once those get taken away, all of these underlying issues kind of start to come out of the woodworks because there's nothing else to regulate you. So now not only are you dealing with the withdrawal of hormones, but now you're having all of these other issues, and you're like, went through menopause and everything, kind of went down the tubes. You can actually start bioidentical hormone replacement therapy when you're starting menopause. You can, and there are supplements as well that you can do menopause well, and then postmenopausally, I do recommend bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Now, caveat is that if you go too long without hormones, it may be dangerous to start bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And also, not all hormone replacement therapy is the same. There's synthetic, and then there's bioidentical. That's another topic for another time. But just know, if you're in the age range of you might want your hormones replaced, please be aware that there's a way to do it correctly, and there's a way that does put you at risk, okay? So what we do at Smolic Wellness, we always monitor and keep it in that safe range. We minimize risk, and we make sure the patient has the best benefit at the safest levels. So there's lots of monitoring that's involved to make sure that you are where you need to be. It's very individualized. Most of the time, you can't get something from Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, a normal commercial pharmacy like that. It is very individualized medicine. So most of the time, you'll be getting a prescription that is specific to you at your dosing from a compounding pharmacy. Okay, now that that's said and out of the way, breaking down each phase of the cycle. So how, as females, should we be experiencing our cycle? Some people will say these are symptoms that you'll have. They're not really symptoms. They're just the experience of the fluctuation of your hormones and its natural progression. The follicular phase. This is the first half of your cycle up until the day that you ovulate, okay? Most people, it's going to be the first 14 days. Your estrogen is higher here. This is your estrogenic phase, okay? Comparatively to other hormones, your estrogen is a little bit higher. You also will see ovulation in this phase. Most females feel great in this phase. You're a little bit more social. You want to go out a little bit more. Your attention to detail is more on. You'll notice that you can see differences in people, and especially yourself. You'll notice those differences that in your luteal phase or other people might not see at that time because they're not in their follicular phase. Your creativity is spiked here. Your ability to come up with new ideas is spiked here. Your ability to work out, your ability to actually build muscle is greater here than in your luteal phase. And most females feel the best in their follicular state. So the first 14 days of their cycle, especially during the ovulation, so around days 11 to days 14 is really when females thrive and feel the best. There is a population, right now it's about 7%. I don't know how accurate that number really is because females are very understudied in the scientific community. So it could be more than 7%, but right now we're clocking it at 7% of females may actually feel worse in their follicular phase. Just know you can be cycling well and you can feel worse in this follicular phase. If that's you, and you're doing all of these things when we talk about later to try and make your cycle the most regular, set yourself up for the most success while you're cycling. If that's still you, that's okay. Breaking down the luteal phase. Okay, so this is the back half of your period. This is a major shift in your hormones from the first 2 weeks to the next 2 weeks. It's a massive shift, and there's a lot going on in this phase. Once you ovulate, that mature egg comes out, it's released. Your progesterone is going to rise to try and protect the baby. When your body realizes that you aren't pregnant, that progesterone comes straight off. So you have this great influx of progesterone, and then if you're not pregnant, you have a huge dropping off of the progesterone. There's a lot of brain activity that kind of goes with this. Progesterone is a huge hormone that works in your brain. So there's a lot that can happen during this. And just know that the whole purpose of the luteal phase, so just breaking it down into one thing that kind of can help you remember, oh yeah, this is what my body is doing. You're trying to literally create a life and protect that creation of that life. So your body is going to decrease its danger threshold. You're not going to want to do as dangerous of things. You're not going to want to be as social. Your body changes into preservation mode. Okay, so your body's natural ability to fight infection will be suppressed because if you have a baby, we don't want to kill that thing inside of us. It may be a little bit easier to sleep here for some females. Your body temperature is actually going to increase. This phase is metabolically expensive. So you are going to need to increase your calories by 7 to 10%. For a normal female, roughly translate to about 100 to 200 calories. So it's not a full meal that you're eating, it's just a little bit of extra zhuzh in this phase, and in the form of a complex carb, that's great. So throw in some sweet potato, throw in some rice that has its bran, those types of things. Those are all great to kind of add to your meals to get what your body needs. The way you work out is going to shift. Your physical ability to actually build muscle changes here, and you're not going to be able to build as much muscle in this phase as you will in your estrogenic phase. So if you're one of those females who's working out and you're like, man, I'm just short of breath all the time here, that's normal. You will be short of breath. Man, I feel like I just can't lift the same weight. The way I've kind of handled that is either decrease your reps or decrease your weight. It's okay during this time. You don't have to just push through it. You can do more damage by trying to do that. There's a reason why your body's talking to you in that way, and learning to listen to your body is also an art. But once you know that, you can start listening and then start kind of cueing like, oh, okay, it is harder to lift, my dumbbells here. I'm just gonna go down, a couple pounds, and see if I can continue my set. And typically that helps the female. You should typically feel energized at the end of your workout or movement session, whatever you want to call it. You should typically feel energized and not more fatigued. So if you're feeling more fatigued after your workout, it's a good indicator that you should probably kind of switch that up a little bit. Start noticing where you're at in your phases to see that physical level of exertion and how you're feeling in that way. Some other things in the luteal phase. Some women actually find it easier to focus, but your ability to stay focused can actually decrease. So you need something that's a little bit more stimulating to catch your attention here, because you're working on that calmness and calming your brain down. There's actually some caveats I want to talk to you guys about that's also normal. So there are some metabolizers of progesterone that they metabolize this hormone differently. And so they might actually feel more anxious and not more calm in this phase. And those who are a little bit more prone to being neurodivergent will find it a lot harder to focus in this phase because of all of that added brain activity that's going on. Okay. That's everything kind of clumped and condensed into the luteal phase. The luteal phase is a major chunk of a huge shift for females. So being cognizant, I'm going into my luteal phase, I might be a little bit more moody, I might not want to be as social, I might not want to talk as much, those types of things, it's all normal. Lots of females who in the workspace have meetings or they have to come up with ideas and be creative, sometimes these realizations, when you put it together with your hormones, you can actually rearrange the way you work and set yourself up for better success, knowing how you operate in each phase. So here are some cool tips and tricks that I have found to be very helpful in trying to regulate your hormones and find a hormonal balance so you can have a normal cycle. Okay, I know it's cliche, but you want to track it, and it's not as hard as you think. You just break it down into phase 1 and phase 2, follicular phase, luteal phase, estrogenic phase, luteal phase, whatever you want to call it, however you want to dictate that. It's essentially the first half of your cycle and the last half of your cycle. So start pinpointing, okay, I had my period, day 1 of your bleed is day 1 of your cycle. Start pinpointing the 14 days. And if you're a 35-day cycler or a 21-day cycler, just adjust the half of your periods. So just track it. What was I like in this phase? What was I like in this phase? Track it for about 3 cycles, and then you'll kind of pinpoint what your normal experience is during these cycles. Okay, a few things about regulation. If you are seeing like brown blood, like to start your period, that's a good indicator that you have low progesterone. And so we need to work on getting that up in your luteal phase. Okay, we need progesterone to balance out estrogen. If you don't have enough progesterone, your body can switch into an estrogen dominant like state, and that comes with a whole plethora of metabolic issues. So if you have brown blood at the very beginning of your period, just know that you need to work towards your progesterone levels increasing. If you can't do it with some of these tips and tricks naturally, you may need to seek medical advice. The other thing that is very, very simple, it actually might not be simple. I'm oversimplifying it. But conceptually, get rid of endocrine disruptors. The number one cause of PCOS, and we have studies that show this and it's coming out, is just toxins. The food that we eat and the chemicals that we expose ourselves to. These are called endocrine disruptors. So things like phthalates, fragrances, perfumes, soaps, everything that touches your skin that has fragrance, a phthalate, a chemical, it can be causing hormonal disruption in you. When you heat up plastic, if you're eating from heated plastic, if you're using pots and pans that are lined with chemicals that can leach into your food, you need to be looking into all of that and eliminating the toxins. Food, especially what you're putting in your body, again, there's lots of toxins. So if you eat a lot of processed food, a lot of refined sugar, we need to try and start moving ourselves back from that. A really cool tip is just to simply shop the perimeter of your grocery store. That's usually an easier method. Just start getting everything from the perimeter of your grocery store. If you have access to a farmer's market and you're at that price point, get things from a farmer's market when you can. Be checking the types of meats that you're putting into your body. Okay, so endocrine disruptors, get rid of them. I did a video about easy ways of detoxifying your life. I did forget to mention in that video deodorant. Deodorant has aluminum, so if you're using deodorant that has aluminum, that's another big one because it will block your lymphatic pathways, which are your detox pathways, and you want those to be open. So getting rid of the deodorant with aluminum in it is a surefire way of opening up those detox pathways, because if you are and have been using aluminum deodorant, they're more than likely blocked. The next thing that you should focus on is 30% of wholesome protein for every meal. So if there's one thing, aside from getting rid of endocrine disruptors, if there's one thing that you change right now, today, that will help to regulate you the most, would be to get 30% of every single meal being protein. There's an easy calculation. It's a little bit higher, but that's okay. But really it kind of boils down to you want 1 gram of protein per pound of wanted body fat. So if you want to weigh 120 pounds, you should be aiming for 120 grams of protein. If you get 110 in, that's fabulous. That's good. 110 is good. But that's just an easy way to kind of gauge in grams where you want to be for the day. So 120 grams divided by 3 meals for your day, that's how many grams per meal you should be eating. Some people don't want to count calories or count their grams of protein in a day, which is totally fine. You can actually eyeball this in most instances. When you take the area of your plate or whatever you're eating on, if you can look at what 1/3 of that would be, you can eyeball that pretty evenly. 1/3 of whatever space you're eating on should consist of protein. That's like a meat or eggs or chickpeas or black beans or lentils. There are some of the higher vegetables of protein. Some other tips that people really like cottage cheese. Cottage cheese can be high in protein, so cottage cheese bowls are a fabulous, easy, very versatile way of like doing a, easy lunch to take to work. You can do yogurt as long as it's not as processed. If I'm very picky about the dairy that I give to myself and my family. I will get my yogurt from the farmer's market, from raw cow's milk. There are really good options at the grocery store for whole milk or Greek yogurt. You can use those. Just look at the back, look at the ingredients, make sure there's not any super harsh chemicals. H-E-B has some really good options for yogurt and cottage cheese. Another tip for females that I have seen be very, very successful, but is very, very hard, is going gluten-free. It can be very hard in this society, and it's a little bit easier. So if you're cooking from home and you're deciding to cook from home, it can actually be very easy to go gluten-free these days. It's when you start going out or traveling that it can be very difficult to remain gluten-free. But I have seen going gluten-free really help some of this hormonal regulation in females. Other things that you want to be cognizant of, cortisol is a big bad boss. So when we talk about these cycles and your hormones in general, your cortisol is going to dictate kind of what all of your other hormones are doing. It's the big bad boss. So one of the best ways to regulate cortisol is to make sure you're sleeping well. Females do need a little bit more sleep than males. We need typically about 8 to 10 hours of sleep. So safeguard that sleep. Cortisol and melatonin are inverse. So your cortisol is supposed to rise in the morning and come down at night so you can go to sleep. Your melatonin is supposed to do the opposite. Your melatonin is supposed to be low in the morning and raise so you can go to sleep. When you're on your phone all the time, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on this, when you're on your phone, especially before bed, that blue light will decrease your body's ability to produce that melatonin. So it really does disrupt the way you sleep. So even if you're on your phone and like, oh, I can go right to sleep, that's fine. And we do know that blue light will disrupt melatonin. So you're going to sleep, but your sleep quality might be lower because your melatonin production is not as good as it could be. So there's a few tips and tricks. If you're just not going to be off your phone before you go to bed, fine. There are actually screen protectors that will convert a lot of that blue light into red light. It's not 100% and it's better than nothing. So if you're one of those people who are like, I'm not gonna get off my phone before bed, at least consider getting one of these red light converting screen protectors. There's one brand that I really love because they've got studies to back it up, and they show you everything in the science behind their conversion of blue light to red light. I'll link them in the description below. They do take FSA and HSA, so that's really good. They do have privacy and they do have regular. So if you're one of those ones who has to have a privacy screen, don't worry, they've got you covered. Other things, if you're wanting to know more than just that, those are the basics that you should be doing to regulate your hormones. You should safeguard all of these things. Start with one thing and then master that and then move to the next. The other thing that you can do is actually increasing your omegas. Omegas are good for everything, but also hormonal balance. So I have an omega supplement that I take that I really, really like. You can increase your amounts of fatty fish. So salmon is really, really great to add, but be careful. Make sure you're paying attention to where the salmon is caught, where the salmon is being sourced, essentially. Or you can just take an omega supplement. I'll link that below as well. Workouts, the last thing. We kind of preface this in the luteal phase. I think it's so important to make sure that your workouts are matching your body's needs. If you've been doing your workouts in your 20s and you're used to one way of working, when you have that hormonal shift between 25 and 30, you have to adjust your workouts. And it is not a weakness, and you are not, oh, I used to be able to do this. Why can't I do this anymore? You can literally do a lot of damage. When I turned 30, granted, there was a lot of other issues going on, but there was a huge shift in my hormones in particular, and I was pushing myself to the point of exhaustion. And I eventually started tracking my heart rates, and my heart rates were getting way, way too high. You can do a lot of damage when you don't work out properly and you're not listening to your body. If you're one of those people who has always been like, just push it, just one more, just do it, you can do it. I don't always think that that's the healthiest version of working out once you get to a certain age, right? So a lot of the times you'll see my over 30 workouts on our channel, and that's for a reason. Most of the time, especially when you're in your 20s, you can just push it. I was an athlete from the age of 3. I started with ice skating, and then when I turned 8, I really got into swimming very heavily. When you transition and when you're not an athlete, your workouts need to change, and that's okay. It's a mental game. So you'll see in the next couple of weeks, I am going to start putting out some workouts that are specific to help females gauge what does a good workout look and feel like when I'm in my follicular phase versus when I am in my luteal phase. It can be hard, and it was really hard for me to kind of understand this. It was something that I've always known, but I didn't have the brain capacity, and I kind of had decision fatigue, and I was like, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to keep working out the way I want to work out. Once I actually finally decided to start working out for the phases of my cycle, I started seeing much better results. My gains were much better. My progression of my weight loss that I wanted was much better and easier. All of the things kind of started to come into place, and just in general, I felt so much better. So again, some encouragement for those females. If you have been an athlete or if you've been one of those people who just push it, just know that you may need to adjust, and that tell yourself that that's okay. It is okay. It is very hard. It was very hard for me to go from running interval runs on my treadmill at a certain pace to really not doing interval runs at all. It was very hard to kind of stop that and say, maybe this isn't serving me in the way that it should be or was serving me in the past. Let me reevaluate what my workouts should look like. Now I'm super avid, and I'm a huge proponent of rebounder workouts, which is just the mini trampoline. Just for all of the health benefits, I love it. It's good cardio. It's just good all around. So a lot of my workouts you'll see are rebounder workouts, and you can get a rebounder, in my opinion, it's worth it, on Amazon for about 80 to 90 bucks. If you're gonna be working out every day, I feel like that's a great investment. I have one linked in our Amazon shop if you wanna check it out. That's the one that I really like. It will take about 3 cycles for you to really see the changes of what you're doing. So once you implement a change, give yourself 3 months or 3 cycles to really see a difference in what your body's gonna do with the changes that you're giving it. I am a hormone specialist, so if you want more advice or if you want to get an appointment with me, you are more than welcome to seek my help if you would like. But I think trying these things first are simple and easy before you try and get a specialist help on board. If this information was helpful, or if you want more information like this, comment below, let us know what you think. Hope to see you again soon.